mentioned, my name is Elizabeth Nosted, but we have some new people coming in. I'm the host of the meeting, so I'll be here along with Rose to answer questions that you may have during the meeting. We'll have some specific question times available, and we've got a whole fantastic, exciting program in the Thriving with Parliamentary Procedures. You should see the hard work that our three presenters have put together, as well as our community hosts and so on, to put this fabulous presentation together. We've been meeting over a number of months, and I'm so excited to be here to learn from all of them as well. I would like to introduce our our first presenter in this event, and that is Jean Gamester. And Jean is a past District Director of District 91, which is the UK. And she'll be guiding us through the first part of the presentation. So please give a big round of applause for Jean Gamester. Sorry, Jean, you're muted.
That's that old trick, you know, of starting off speaking and being muted and being told that you're off mute. It's a bit of a kind of icebreaker for us, don't you know? Welcome, everyone. We are here to thrive with parliamentary procedure. And I'm delighted to see that we have friends from all over the world here to explore the joys that are parliamentary procedure in Toastmasters district council meetings in particular. So, a bit of history before we start. Back in the autumn, Pat Johnson approached myself and Marika and suggested to us that we might want to have some fun with parliamentary procedure and start to explore ways to share knowledge and start to build community in this space. Over the following months, we developed a first workshop, Surviving with Parliamentary Procedure, which was quite broad around the area of parliamentary procedure in Toastmasters, with a particular focus on getting through district council meetings successfully. Out of the back of that session, two strands of activity started to form. One was the strand that leads us here today with the Surviving with Parliamentary Procedure session, where we're going to go into a bit more depth into some of the more exciting areas of parliamentary procedure that we've explored over the past few months. And the other strand, which is all around starting to develop community within this space. So our session today has partly all about exploring how we thrive with parliamentary procedure, and we will start the discussion about taking that community forward. What I'd like to do first is to introduce some of the people who are speaking this evening. Well, this evening for me, I know it's all sorts of different times for everybody else, but this evening for me, I am joined by Pat, Marika, Larry, and Jocelyn, and I'm going to ask you one by one to introduce yourself and give us a little bit about where you're from, what district you're from, maybe what role you're doing, so that we can start to get to know the people who are going to be speaking this evening. I'll start with Pat.
Thank you, Jean. My name is Pat Johnson, and I'm currently, with a couple of days left, the Region 10 advisor, moving to Region 2 this coming year, back onto the North American continent. I currently live in Victoria, British Columbia, Canada, which is the extreme west coast of Canada. So I'm 9 hours behind you. I had to figure out if it was behind or in front. So, and I am currently a member of District 21. And I think that's enough. Member of one club and love my club. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Marika.
Hi, my name is Marike Dijksterhuis. Try to pronounce that name. I'm from District 59. I'm a past district director and also a past parliamentarian, and I'm a member of Rotterdam Toastmasters.
Thank you, Marika. And now I'm going to hand over to Larry to introduce himself.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. My name is Larry Lyons. I'm the current District 71 parliamentarian. I'm living in the middle of Ireland at the moment. Lovely sunny evening here, 7 o'clock in the evening. I'm president of Roscrea Speakers Club and vice president of education of Toastmasters for golf clubs. So I'm a busy man. Looking forward to meeting you all later on. Thank you.
Fabulous. Thank you, Larry. And finally, Jocelyn.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jocelyn Vizina. I am the current district director for District 86, which is Northern, Southern, Central Ontario in Canada. Looking forward to this meeting.
Fabulous. Thank you, Jocelyn. So, ladies and gentlemen, those are the people who are going to be doing the speaking today. There's a whole broader community that have been involved in shaping this. And you're going to be introduced to them at the end. We've got some beautiful credits set up by our facilitator extraordinaire, Rose, who has done an amazing job of organizing us all as we step into this session. In our session, we are going to have all sorts of exciting things going on. We're going to have polls. We're going to have fish bowls. It's very exciting. And what we'd like to do to start us off is a little bit of a poll. I'm hoping that you might be able to see my screen now. Are you seeing a screen that has a list of roles for next year?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
Fantastic. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's just find out what everybody's up to in this year coming up this week. Hopefully the poll gives you the option to fill in which of these roles, and you may be doing more than one, you're planning on doing from next week for the next year. Getting ourselves nicely warmed up. Okay. It's very exciting. 75% of you have voted already. Are there any more? Oh, they're still coming in. We're at 91%. Very good. So, ladies and gentlemen, the fabulous people that we have here today, we have lots of members, lots of club leaders. We have area and division directors, lots of people who are district council members. So hopefully today in particular will be good for you. Members of district leadership teams. We have 4 district parliamentarians. I hope you enjoy. We also have a district credentials chair. There's a slot just for you in here. No region advisors, and we do have a few lovely board members. So, ladies and gentlemen, lots of variety in the room. So let us see what is going to happen next. We're in the middle of the introduction, and we are about to step into 3 different scenarios. One where our council meeting begins, and Pat is going to take us through a couple of interesting questions, interesting situations that can come up under those circumstances. We'll next move on to budgets with Marika and realignment with me. Then we'll have some questions and answers, and then the opportunity to step into parliamentary procedure for us as a community. Now for the experimental, almost experimental bit of the evening, before we move into the experimental bit, the not so experimental bit, the bit that's really well established, our governance in Toastmasters International, and I'm going to hand over to Marika.
Yes, let's do a quick recap on governance in Toastmasters International, because this can help you when deciding upon the best approach to the questions later on in this session. So, in order of authority, the Articles of Incorporation and the bylaws of Toastmasters International, number 1 and 2, are the highest governing documents and shall only be modified by the voting membership. Policies are secondary to these two, and they are adopted and revised by the board of directors. Next is protocols, and many articles of policy and protocol are vital to know for a district officer. I always carried them with me when I was at district meetings, being district director or parliamentarian. Next, the district administrative bylaws. That's the central document governing administration of the districts of Toastmasters International. And this is also a vital part to read and to study when serving as an officer or an official. The district meeting is governed by Robert's Rules of Order for a transparent and fair process, and to ensure the rights of individuals, that the rights of individuals are protected. Ultimately, of course, the will of the majority decides the matter, but only after a full and free discussion, and the rights of all must be protected. Robert's Rules of Order protects and assures this. And for the meeting itself, the chair always decides, and the parliamentarian is a support with no authority and no voting rights in the meeting. Over to Jean.
Thank you, Marika. Now we move on to the experimental part. Some of you may have experienced in the real, non-virtual world, fish bowls in meetings. So a fish bowl in a meeting, when you're physically with people, tends to be a small group of people sitting in the center of a room and a broader group of people observing. And what happens in the physical space is that if there's a spare chair in the inner circle, then anyone may join the inner circle to get involved in the conversation. And when they're finished conversing, they come out of the inner circle and somebody else can come in. Well, we think we'd like to try this out with a virtual community like us. And we're brave and we believe we can make it work. So, ladies and gentlemen, here are our instructions that we hope will work beautifully on virtual fish bowls. And if they don't, then we anticipate a bit of adapting. The rules. To enter our virtual fishbowl, we will have a maximum number of people, that is 6, including the chair. So for example, Pat will chair the first session when we go into our first scenario. If you're in the fishbowl, your camera will be on. And if you're not in the fishbowl, your camera won't be on. This is how we anticipate being able to tell who's in the fishbowl and who's not. So if you're not in the fishbowl, then you'll have your camera off, please. But if you want to join the fishbowl, then you have a raised hand function on your Zoom controls. So we'll invite you to raise your hand. And our fabulous coordinator, Rose, is going to watch out for people with their hands up and move them in to the fishbowl in accordance to your desires to enter. And hopefully everybody who puts their hands up will get a chance to enter, but this is our way of ensuring the maximum chance that people will get to participate in the conversation. So the idea then is, once you're in the fishbowl, participate in the conversation, and in the tradition of Robert's Rules, make sure that your contribution is germane. And then when you're done, step out of the fishbowl by switching off your camera, at which point Rose will know that somebody who has their hands up can enter. Now, there's an old trainer trick of making sure that there's always volunteers ready to step into something. But we're in Toastmasters and we believe that there will be loads of volunteers. But just in case it gets a bit quiet, imagine yourself in the room with me and making eye contact. You will know that I'm going to be inviting you to step in if it gets a bit quiet. So just imagine that eye contact and step in and be brave, because we're all learning here. So once you're finished, as I said, you leave the fishbowl, and then everybody who's observing, please, pay attention to what's going on in the conversation, because of course, you might be inspired to join in any second. When the time's up, the chair will close the session after the last speaker. So we're feeling brave. So we would like to now experiment with this. So everybody could switch off their camera. Oops. Fabulous. Then we just have myself and the lovely Rose with our cameras on. So if you would like to share what is the best council meeting you have ever been to, please raise your hand and Rose will invite you to turn on your camera. Hello, Pat. What was the best council meeting you have ever been to? Mute. Oh, still mute. Still mute. You went on and off.
The one that I chaired when I was international president.
Brilliant. Thank you.
I remember everything from it.
I can imagine every moment is imprinted in your mind. Fantastic. Elizabeth, what about you?
Thank you, Jean. I remember a fabulous district meeting with Morag Mathieson, who's now second vice president. And she has a gentle style, but she kept everything under control. So she was a fabulous leader of the district at that time.
Fabulous. Thank you, Elizabeth. And actually, I think Morag might be here this evening. So it's very exciting. So Rose, I'm going to speak to this remaining group, and then I'm going to close the fishbowl, and I'm going to invite Bill to speak next.
Thank you. And just to let everyone know that I'm working with Panos, and Panos is going to be taking the first scenario. Thank you.
Fabulous. Bill, over to you.
Thank you, Jean. There's actually two meetings that I've been to. Sorry.
Sound is. Do you want to try again, Bill?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Much better, I think.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
There's a repeat, Bill.
Oh.
So what I'll do is I'm going to invite Pauline to speak next, and then Elizabeth, and then I'm going to come back to you. Pauline.
Hi, yes. The last District 71 District Council meeting was, to me, one of the best ones. Now, not because I was credentials chair, but because I saw all of the hard work that went into it in preparation. It was preparation, 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 and it went so well, and it nearly went without a hitch. And I was so happy because I knew the work had gone into it, and the different scenarios we had gone through beforehand.
Fantastic. Thank you, Pauline.
Thank you.
And Elizabeth, welcome.
Which Elizabeth? Because it.
Oh, okay. Elizabeth Jordan, you.
Okay. Sorry, I've literally just joined. I've literally just walked through the door and joined. So, and I just put my hand up. So please advise me what I'm doing.
So the question is, what's the best council meeting you've ever been to?
I have to say it was the last D71 council meeting. I think a lot of preparation went into it. I think everyone knew what they were doing. I think Larry Lyons and Pauline were in control. And I have to say that was really, I was proud to be a member of D71 and see the sheer professionalism and seamless way in which the whole thing ran. So that was one of my favorites, I have to say.
Brilliant. Thank you, Elizabeth. And Bill.
Thank you. Oh, can you hear me? Excellent. All right. Sorry for that feedback earlier. There were actually two. One for me is within Toastmasters was a district that I visited outside of my own in upstate New York. where it just felt smooth. Everybody was pulling in the same direction. Everybody seemed to have a handle of what was going on and asking for permission to speak. So everybody got to participate in a very respectful way. Conversely, the one that also stands out in my mind is actually a city council meeting in my hometown in Southern Ontario, where it was just catastrophic and devolved into a huge learning opportunity, not just for the council, but for the community, where people in the audience were injecting themselves into the meeting without having a formal voice, and were not members of the assembly. So it was really interesting to see how that was managed and became a learning experience for everyone. Thank you for hearing me.
Thank you, Bill. Yes, I think many of us may have experienced exciting council meetings that helped us develop and grow. So on the subject of developing and growing, I am now going to hand over to the fabulous Pat, who's going to take us through our first scenario. Over to you, Pat. And you can switch your cameras on again now.
Thank you so much, Jean, for that introduction to Fishbowl. And wow, we get to sort it out and see how it works. And fortunately, I have Panos on my team, and we'll see how it goes. So when we look at some scenarios regarding when the meeting begins is the scenario that we're looking at. And I'll ask, Jean, are you advancing slides? Thanks. My slide has not, oh.
Would you like the whole slide, Pat? As there's, looks like there's a bit of a delay.
Just. I have got a difficulty here.
Can you not see the slides?
No.
Can other people see the slides?
No.
No.
Okay. Let's try again.
Thank you. We're on, Jean. Thank you so much. I was wondering if I had hit something on my computer. Okay, everyone, here's the first scenario. The meeting begins. Dun, 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 and we all walk into that wherever it is, whether it is online, whether it is in person. And the district council meeting is going to begin. There's a rustle in the room. And halfway through the online meeting, because there's always rustling even if we're online, a number of members log out and there is no quorum anymore. Does any action have to be taken in this situation? And if so, what would be done? So we're going to launch a poll and you're going to get to vote. You can see that there'll be no action necessary to be taken. Proceed as usual. The second choice, no quorum present. So the motions and subsequent decisions made after the quorum is lost need to be ratified by sending these out to all voting delegates following the meeting. And the third one, loss of quorum. So voting cannot take place on the remaining items. There are not enough ballots being cast. So I'm going to invite you to cast your ballot for 1, 2, or 3. And there is only reward for being bold and brave in this. Some of us experienced this in recent meetings. Some of you may not have known that this happened. So don't be afraid of voting in here. So we've got 3 brave people so far that have voted.
Pat, the poll includes both questions. So,
oh, okay.
So probably move on to the second one as well, and then we'll do it all in one go.
Okay, thanks, Gina. I didn't realize that. Okay, and the second question is, What if a member raises a motion to add an item to the agenda? The chair declares it out of order. Someone else disputes this ruling and wants to raise the same motion again. So the choice is the chair can ask for a show of hands as to how many wish to have the motion allowed when introduced a second time. And the chair declares a motion out of order and informs the assembly of this. The third one, the chair decides to rule the motion in order and moves it to the new business category of the meeting to be dealt with later in the meeting. So you'll have 2 to vote on, 2 questions. And we'll wait for your votes. I love to see the variation in responses. This is fantastic. This is great. This will be great for Fishbowl. Okay, we're at 83. We'll close it in 20 seconds so that we can keep moving here. Okay, any last voters? Fantastic. Okay. So we've got, we'll do the first scenario and use the fishbowl for that. So we're looking at halfway through the online meeting, a number of members log out and there's no quorum. Does the action have to be taken? And if so, what? So we've got 28%, the first one, 21 and 51. Okay. So let's invite people into the fishbowl with me. So Panis is going to invite people to join me and share their perspectives on this. Okay, I see Pauline. Would you share your opinion?
Yes, my opinion is that the quorum has been decided by, because it's online, by the people that have registered by the cutoff point. So you just can't be keeping an eye on who's in the meeting, who's left the meeting. The quorum is the quorum at the start of the meeting as you announce it.
Okay, great. Thanks, Pauline. And I see David highlighted. David.
Yes. This would be the same as if a bunch of people wanted to abstain from a vote. Just because you don't have all the ballots that as many meeting participants, that doesn't mean that the motion isn't passed or failed because those people abstained. And so I would use the same logic with this. If they've left, it's considered the ultimate abstention.
Okay. And I have Bill Kirby.
Thank you.
Bill? Yeah.
Can you hear me? Yes?
Yes.
My position would be that once quorum is lost, the whatever business is on the table would need to be suspended for whatever the prescribed period would be until quorum can be reestablished. Otherwise, business cannot be conducted.
Okay, thank you so much for that. And who else wants to come in too? I see Dennis. You're not showing, but if you'll speak in the fishbowl.
Yes, thank you. I can't get my camera to work.
Okay.
As it is with credentials, and I think it was said, for council meetings, once quorum is determined, it does not matter what attendance is later throughout the council meeting. So you would continue on.
Okay, Great. Thank you, everyone, for showing up for that discussion. And in fact, when we see the next slide that I believe Jean will share with us. So we looked at, and so let's look at the flow here is different than when I practiced it. So excuse me, everyone. So looking at virtual meetings and electronic voting, absolutely. We're looking under district administrative bylaws. So it's when we have the registered voters. So the survey, who will be attending is taken and from your club presidents and your ed VPs. And then you will know that your quorum is met. Regardless of how long they stay, you establish a quorum and it is set for the duration. If there's no quorum established, you would conduct the meeting just as you would in person, vote regardless, and then the decision must be approved in writing by whatever means the district chooses to use, and then by an affirmative vote of the majority of the member clubs in the district on the basis of 2 votes per club. So that is what happens in that scenario. Okay, if we can go back to the previous question, if we look at halfway through, Jean, can I go back 2 slides? Thank you. So what if a member raises a motion to add an I don't have this isn't the scenario I have. So let me go forward to the, sorry, yes. So the scenario I had was the consequences of not having a sorry, I got confused. I was on the wrong page. My apologies. So yeah, again, if we're looking at the yes, if you can go back, Jean, I'm sorry. I had the wrong sheet. Okay, so a member raises a motion to add an item to the agenda. The chair declares it out of order. Someone else disputes this ruling and wants to raise the same motion again. So here we're going to launch a poll again. And number 1 is the chair can ask for a show of hands as to how many wish to have the motion allowed. The chair declares the motion out of order, or the chair decides to rule the motion in order and moves it to be dealt with later. So if we can look at the results here, we have we have 34 for the first, being that asking for a show of hands, and 43 at the bottom to rule the motion in order. Okay, let's have a look at what people have to say about this. If you want to raise your hand and come into the fishbowl with me, I'm really not dangerous. I was confused for a moment because of all the different scenarios we have, but I'm back, so I'm harmless. Come into the fishbowl if you would like to speak to this one. So a member raises a motion to add an item to the agenda. The chair declares it out of order. Someone else disputes it and wants to raise the same motion again. Who would like to speak to this? I'm seeing nobody wanting to come into the fishbowl. Okay, Bill, welcome to the fishbowl.
Sorry, thank you. Pat, I just had to get a breath of air before going back underwater in the fishbowl. My thought would be that ultimately, after a show of hands, the chair would add the motion to new business to be considered later in the meeting, only because a majority had wanted the motion to be considered, and that overruled the chair's decision.
Okay, great.
The chair's
Thank you.
decision.
Thank you, Bill. Looking for some faces. Larry, what is your take on this or your input?
If the chair rules it out of order, it can be appealed via a motion. They can appeal his or her decision, but you must have two people, one to propose and the other to second that the motion should be in order or discussed.
Okay.
So on a show of hands, then maybe, yeah. The chair, okay, can rule, but the assembly have the deciding decision, and it can be appealed. Yes.
Okay, great. Thanks, Larry. And I see Evelyn has entered the fishbowl. Evelyn, and then David next. Evelyn. You're on mute, Evelyn. Thanks.
Hello, Pat. I think the chair decides to rule the motion in order and moves it into the new business category of the meeting to be dealt with later in the meeting.
Okay, great. Thanks for that contribution. David.
Thank you very much. I didn't like any of the answers that we had because if somebody disputed the ruling, then I think what the chair should do is inform them that they can appeal the decision as opposed to just asking for a show of hands. And so it could be done formally. And so also I didn't realize that it was at a district meeting. So that also kind of changed the answer that I gave because the rules are different than for at a club. But this is about districts, so.
Great, thank you. I see Dennis, I know your screen doesn't come on, but enter the fishbowl, please.
Thank you, Pat. Yes, just what David said. The question is a little bit difficult to understand, but yes, disputing doesn't necessarily mean the person actually made a motion to appeal. So a motion to appeal would need to be done, and then the membership could decide from there.
Okay. And I see that somebody's also said that Marcia is in the fishbowl. Have I got Marcia? I see a Marina. Do I have a Marcia?
My name is Marcia.
Oh, Marcia. Okay.
Yes. And I was thinking that it still should be allowed, that the motion should still be allowed to be made, that the purpose of an agenda is to make sure that everything is covered. It doesn't mean that it's kind of a controlling tool saying that nothing else can be added. So I'm leaning toward the motion can be made.
Okay, great. And Marina, we'll have one last fishbowl.
I'd like, for the sake of argument, to speak in favor of the third option, which was, or actually the second here, of ruling the motion out of order a second time and informing the assembly, because I assume the chair declared one motion out of order for a good reason, against the rules. So he either stands by the decision or she doesn't stand by this decision, and a show of hands would not work. But
okay.
Again, for being playing the devil's advocate.
Great, thank you so much. Well, there is a process, and this one was a very interesting one. So no wonder I was kerfuffled at the beginning, because we were discussing it back and forth. And in fact, if Jean moves the slides a couple forward, we find that we have some district executive committee meeting governance in terms of that, that we have an agenda item requires, if it needs a vote, that they need to publish that 4 weeks in advance. And then we have the proposed agenda item at least 14 days in advance. However, when we look at Robert's Rules of Order, we have a non-ranking motion is a possibility here, and that's called the appeal. And the member states that I appeal to the decision of the chair, and the chair states the chair's decision has been appealed. Is there a seconder? And the question before the assembly is, shall the decision of the chair be sustained? So here we find that this motion is debatable, it's not amendable, it requires a majority vote, and while a tie vote sustains the chair's decision. So it can be handled with an appeal as the outcome for this. So thank you for engaging, trying out the fishbowl with us first, and helping me get my mind sorted around Robert's Rules and parliamentary procedure this morning. And I'll return it over to Jean, I believe. No, Marieke is doing budget, I believe.
Exactly. Okay, so we all started the meeting together, and now we are up to the next item. The finance manager just had been given the floor to present the district budget. At that moment, a member raises her hand to raise a point of order. What can the chair do? And the point of order is the budget can't be discussed since it hasn't been distributed 14 days in advance. So there's a poll for you to get your brains working. So here are, oh yeah, and as we noticed before, we have to, I think we have, am I correct that we have to answer both questions before it can be submitted? Eh? So maybe it's good to move the poll aside for a while, yeah? And let's look at the second question, because then we can answer also the second question. What if a member raises a motion to change the percentages of the budget allocations? And there's also 3 options to choose from, and you can read them in the poll. So if you could show the poll again and just get your brain working and look at answer the first question, which is about the point of order, and then the second one that is about changing the percentages of the budget allocations. You can start answering, yes. All right, so how far are we? 25, yes, people are still voting. So here again, there are some differences. This is 5, 7, 18, and the other one is 5, 17, 11. So 10 more seconds, and then we will end the polling. So think on your feet. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, for time's sake, I'm going to close the poll now, and then, right. Okay, so let's move to the fishbowl. The first fishbowl is about the point of order stating that the budget can't be discussed since it hasn't been distributed 14 days in advance. Could you remove the slide, please? And then we can see the people who want to enter the fishbowl better. So, am I seeing some hands? Who wants to enter the fishbowl on this topic? Anybody? No? Is it too difficult, or is it too simple, or who wants to?
Marina has her hand up, and Kathy looks like she wants her hand up.
Okay. So, Marina, please enter the fishbowl.
All right, the options are very different. I chose the third simply because it seems very democratic to give people a little bit of time in case indeed some did not receive it in time, and it's a significant number of people who did not get it for spam reasons or whatever. But I mean, it depends on the actual factual situation behind it. And in a meeting, you have to make decisions fast. So that's how I would go.
Okay, that's a clear answer. Thank you. I see Bill.
Yes, thank you, Marika. I agree with Marina that it seemed unclear to me whether or not it could be determined with certainty that everyone had received it 14 days in advance or not. Therefore, I would agree with Marina that it seemed the most democratic way to adjourn, allow people to have a determined reading period, and then come back with any questions that would be appropriate to the question on the floor.
Okay, thank you. And then I see Kathy, if I'm correct.
Yes.
So please go ahead.
If the budget rules say that the budget has to be received 14 days before, and if they haven't ensured that the budget has gone out to everybody as per their bylaws or whatever, then the budget cannot be discussed, is what I would think.
Okay, that's clear. Thank you. And finally, we have DJ.
Thank you. I think the first two is basically the decision that it would have to be. If the admin sent it out 14 days, 15 days in advance, and people did not receive it, it's kind of like mailing a letter. It's perceived as being received anyway. So it's a matter of, was it actually sent out on time? And if it was, then they can proceed. If it was sent out at 13 days or less, then they would have to table it and not be able to vote on it at that time.
Okay, thanks. So that's clear answers. Let's see, after doing the fishbowl of the second question, what can be found in the governing documents and Robert's rules. So let's open the fishbowl for the second question first, for time's sake. And the second question was, what if a member raises a motion to change the percentage of the budget allocations? So who wants to join the fishbowl for that question. What if a member raises a motion to change the percentages of the budget allocations? Do I see? Okay. Is this Panos? What you put in the chat, are these the new ones? DJ and Gerard, am I correct? Yeah. So DJ, did you raise your hand or not?
I did.
Okay, go ahead, please.
This one is the one that actually it could be handled either way. The chair can either declare the motion out of order just because of the fact that the percentages are actually preset and cannot be changed, or that he can ask the finance manager to make that statement, whichever way the chair chooses to address it.
Okay, thanks. That's very clear. And how about Gerard? What you have to add?
I don't have anything to add. My camera hasn't been working all this evening, so I was just testing it again. Yeah, I don't know.
Okay. Well, never mind. Let's have a look. Thank you for participating in the fishbowl, the people that participated. Let's have a look at the next slide. So what I found is, so for the first one, the question, what if a member raises the point of order stating that the budget can't be discussed since it hasn't been distributed 14 days in advance? It has, in protocol 7.1 says district has to post the budget at least 14 days in advance. So that's clear. It would be, it is possible to choose for option 3, the chair checks with the administration manager if it really becomes unclear who received in time and who didn't. Because what you do normally is that you send, of course, everything in CC also to the core team to have some proof that it has been sent. But for the sake of not delaying a business and having the budget discussed, what the chair can do is allow a 10-minute reading break. And that's what you see in the under the point. An answer to the point of order can be the chair can propose an alternative solution to restore order. And the other one about the budget changes, well, not everything of the budget is fixed, because there is an article that says districts may request a 1-year increase in the maximum limit for the categories of travel and marketing outside Toastmasters. So that means that it would be helpful if the chair asked the member to rephrase the motion and state which specific allocation she proposes to change. And that is something you can do as a chair when you look at Robert's Rules of Order. And there it says the member who offers the motion until it has been stated by the presiding officer can modify her motion or even withdraw it entirely. So for the sake of being able to have a meaningful discussion about the budget, the chair can ask the member to modify the motion before he or she has stated it. Well, this is for the budget part. And now I hand over to Jean, and we have some questions on realignment, also a very interesting topic. Jean, over to you.
Thank you, Marika. Okay, so we've started the meeting, we've worked with budgets, and now it's time for realignment, which is an exciting part of the meeting, I think, because everybody cares about their clubs and about the community that their clubs are part of. So this is a bit that I think people really, really care about. So We have two bits to our scenario here, just like our previous scenarios. The first one is we're developing our report. The report has been presented, and then a member raises a request for information. Why the alignment committee? Why haven't they taken a prospective club into consideration, which would have led to a new area being formed? So our chair has a few options. They could answer the question. They could ask the realignment chair, who's just given their report, to answer the question, or they could rule the question out of order. The next bit, as the story continues, is having received the answer to the question and the motion is put to accept this realignment committee report, that member is still not satisfied. So they propose an amendment to the report. And then somebody else proposes an amendment to the amendment. So what are you going to do? Are you going to vote on the first amendment and then rule the second amendment out of order? Are you going to vote on the second amendment? And if that fails, go back to the first amendment. And if that fails, go back to the original motion. Or are you going to rule all of these amendments out of order and call for a vote on the report? So many options. You now have the glory of a poll to help you work through all of these possibilities. So first question, we've got a request for information. Does the chair answer it? Does the realignment chair answer it? Or do we rule it out of order? And then with the amendment situation, do we vote on the first and rule the second out of order? Do we vote on the second, then the first, then back to the original? Or do we just rule it all out of order and call for a vote? So I'm seeing lots of options coming through. Very interesting, very interesting. Okay, so we can, how are we now? 30% of us have voted. Are there any more votes coming through? Exciting, exciting. Okay, so we can share the results of the polling now. Oh no, we're still voting. Anyway, share away. Can you see the results?
Do you want me to stop the poll, Jean, and in order to share?
Actually, there are more votes coming through. This is very exciting. So almost, Grace, any minute now. Okay, yes, please show the results of the poll. Okay, so we can see that there's a fair bit of alignment over the answer to question 1 that we'd hand over to the realignment chair. And there's also a fair bit of alignment over question 2, that we would vote on the second, then vote on the first. And then if that all fails, we go back to the original. So let's have a bit of a chat about this most exciting of topics. So if you would like to join me in the fishbowl, let's have a chat about what's going on with this. Hello, Rupa. How are you doing?
Hey, Jean. I thought it's time to get involved.
Girl. So what do you think?
Just started to warm up. So on the first part, the chair would defer to the realignment chair to answer the question, because they've done a lot of work over the year. And on the second point, I went with option 3. Again, there is plenty of time for consultation throughout the year, and on the basis that the realignment chair has submitted their report and it has been published in advance, then by all means, discussion open. But yeah, option 3.
Okay, so taking a firm line. Okay, good stuff. So any other perspectives on this? David, welcome.
Yes. Since the question was asking why something was or wasn't in the report, it's obvious that the chair who made the report should be the one who responds. Also, I'd like to add that I'm thinking that saying the question is out of order is very much out of line because there's lots of members now who don't understand anything about district organization or parliamentary procedure, and shutting down an honest inquiry is not a good way of running the district. And that's all I have to say.
Oh, fabulous. Thank you, David. Gerard, welcome.
I would think it's the realignment chair that has the answer and the question to that, and that it has been published, and also that it has been communicated both to the clubs, areas and the divisions and wherever proposals were made. I think it was the word you used, where it is used in a community, because aggravation is caused if it is uncomfortable where the realignment goes.
Fabulous. Thank you, Gerard. Is there anybody else who'd like to join me for a swim in the fishbowl? Okay, let's move to the answer or the possible answers. So the first thing actually is the question around, you know, as we've said, who answers the question? Is it the chair, most often the district director, or is it the realignment chair? So I would also concur that it should be the realignment chair for the reasons that we've described, that, you know, they've done the work and they are really well placed to answer the question. I think the other thing that's really important from a chair perspective is that our job is to make sure that things run smoothly and that there's a certain objectivity that we bring to the proceedings. So actually, if the question was something that only we could answer, it makes sense to hand the chair over to somebody else, perhaps your PQD, if you're a district director and it's a PQD who's your number 2 in the room, so that they can hold the chair and you can participate in the conversation. So that's the first thing that I'd say about the ownership side. The other thing that I think is worth saying is that there are an awful lot of very interesting parts of our governing documents that are relevant here. So when somebody asks a question about realignment, part of the things that are going through my head in particular is, well, how does this question, so this prospective club, how does that relate to the proposed alignment that is in the report? Because if this brand new club is a surprise and it's on the verge of chartering, and it's going to take one of your areas beyond where it's allowed to be on the 1st of July, then actually there's something that needs to be done. It's unfortunate that it wasn't known beforehand, but maybe, you know, this was one of these clubs that was dreamt of on a Friday, and there were so many friends that by Saturday it was chartered. You never know. So it's really important to be clear on what are the consequences of this newly chartered club. So there are a number of provisions that we tend to look at within our protocols around not just what the appropriate size is for an area and who gets to make the decisions, but also what happens when. So on the 1st of July, there can't be any more than 6 clubs in an area. And by the 15th of July, the district director is going to need to tell headquarters their proposed alignment. And if any of that proposed alignment doesn't fit in with the rules, then there's some more work to be done. So it's really important during that final stage that if anything comes up, even if it's after the council meeting, that takes us beyond the structure that's allowed, action will need to be taken. So for me, the original question about whether or not there's a problem with the realignment report comes down to the particular circumstances of the area and the club in question, and when this prospective club is likely to charter. So the other thing is that, yeah, absolutely, anybody can raise a request for information. What's really important within Robert's rules now is that everybody should have a voice. The majority rules, but everyone should have a voice. So if somebody has a question, and they are a voting member of the council, then they're entitled to raise that question. And then the final thing is about amendments, which some people might have got the hang of this the first time they read it, but I have to say I found it a bit tricksy. But Robert's Rules actually is quite clear. Amendments are about getting the language of the motion agreed before we vote. So if somebody has an amendment, so we have a motion and then somebody has an amendment to the motion, then we need to make sure that everybody gets the opportunity to vote on whether that amended motion is the thing to be voted on. And if somebody raises an amendment to the amendment, then we do have the expectation that we are going to allow members, voting members, the opportunity to decide whether this second version of what the motion could be is the thing to go forward. So this amendments business, for me, the thing that's important is that this is about agreeing language, not deciding on the motion yet. So once you've been through the business of amending the language, you can then finally do the voting on the motion itself to make the decision on the report. And I think one of the most common areas where an amendment can happen in a council meeting is during realignment, because for no matter how much consultation is done, things can come up. And my encouragement to anybody who's going to be a chair is to make sure that the realignment consultation has gone really, really well. That way, it limits the amount of amending and requesting for information that happens in your meeting. Okay, so we've had the excitement of realignment. I am now going to hand over to Marika for some questions.
Yes, thank you, Jean. Just a couple of minutes for those who have some questions left with regard to what we discussed so far. So is there anybody with a remaining question?
And if you have a question, could you please raise your hand in the reactions button at the bottom?
Bob Palmer would like to speak.
Okay, I see it. Yes, please go ahead.
Can we put up the polling for the budget questions that we answered?
Oh yes, can we have it back, please? Is it possible? Yeah. So it was 90%, 29%, and then the majority was in favor of allowing a 10 minutes reading break. And I think that's a wise one, because when it can't be proved, then it's best to offer this option. And the other one was the majority. The chair asked the finance manager, who states that all percentages are fixed and prescribed by world headquarters, the majority. Well, and this is, as I explained, is not 100% the case, because there is this small exception about the traveling and marketing. So an exception can be made for 1 year. Does that answer your question, Bob? Is that enough?
Yes, that's great.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions remaining? And if not,
Kathy has her hand up.
Okay, thank you. Please let me know your question.
Okay, I'm working to charter a group, and the group is primarily people who work in nonprofits and advocates, animators, that kind of leadership. And so we want to really focus on the business meeting because they will be chairing a lot of business meetings. Some of these people are running for elected office as a politician. And so we want to get the basics down about how to run a meeting, a business meeting, and the parliamentary and the Robert's Rules of Order and things. And is there a course of study anywhere in the Pathways program that focuses on this?
Anybody knows an answer to this question? Is there anything in Pathways? I'm not 100% sure. I know that I knew that there was something in the youth leadership program, and there is in the, what was it? In the old program, there was something about parliamentary procedures. Anybody knows an answer to this question? Is there anything in Pathways?
There is not.
There is not yet. Okay. So sorry. So we have to write a letter to probably to the board or to Toastmasters International to start something on parliamentary procedures. Might be
I
a good
noticed
idea.
a lot of the other clubs don't have anything right now. Like there's not even a business meeting really to per se. It's somebody giving a few announcements in that time period. So we're trying to look for a club or many clubs that do that we could visit and take some lessons from. So if anyone has any ideas where they can direct us, or some people who have a lot of experience in parliamentary procedures who would come to us as resource people, we would love to know about it.
My suggestion would be also to bring this question with you to the next item on our agenda, the parliamentary procedure community, because this could be an excellent question to also put into the community. And I have one more question, and then we will move to the next part on the agenda. I read somewhere in the chat that there is a module on parliamentary procedures that can be ordered, so that would be great. David Bray, for you, and I have Bob Palmer also, and then Pat, but let's do it quick because we also want to have time left for the community. So David, Bob, and Pat, okay?
This actually relates back to alignment. And I was the incoming area director, and our club was being moved from where it had been for quite some time in one area, and when one district was being moved over to another district. And I was brand new, had no idea, but several of my members objected strenuously. So I called the alignment chair with the backing, co-call of my incoming division director, and said, we'd like to stay where we are. And I was told to pound sand, and not only was I not allowed to question the august judgment of the chair, but I should immediately get on board and stop even asking questions. It doesn't sound like that's the normal process.
I think as Jean explained, it is always allowed to ask questions, I would say. But let's not go into discussion now because I really want to leave some time for Larry. So I have two more people on the list. I said I would give them the chance for a small question. So that's Bob and that's Pat. Bob?
The Riverside Society of Parliamentarians, a community group that I'm a member of, and in fact, I'm the president. I took our beginners workshop from 30 years ago, and I made one for District 12 and other brand new parliamentary clubs. I put it in the chat. It's got everything to learn about parliamentary procedure.
Super. I think that's very, very valuable. Thank you. And finally, Pat, you raised your hand as well.
Yeah, just to reiterate what Bob's saying, there's Toastmaster clubs around that focus on parliamentary procedures. So just do a search and I think you'll find a lot of support out there.
Okay, thank you so much. And now it's my great pleasure to hand over to Larry together with Jocelyn. They are two members of the parliamentary procedure community that is emerging, and they all of them have helped a lot in preparing this workshop, and they want to share with you their thoughts about, okay, how to continue with the community. And maybe some of the questions you were just putting in can find a place in this community. Larry, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Marika. And if everybody would like to turn on your camera, maybe if you want to get engaged, I think it's important we engage with you here in relation to the community going forward, because based on the interest here tonight and a great turnout, I must say, and also with the variety of answers to the polls, I think there's a further need for more of this going forward. And over the last couple of months, we have been engaged in a thriving community, and we'd like to continue that into the future, because I think we need to do it, because it's very, very important for each and every member of Toastmasters to understand the workings of a meeting. And as Jean did say, the minority have to have their voice as well, even though the majority always wins, whether it is pro or against an issue or a motion. But the minority is very important. It's important that they are heard. And sometimes when you hear the voice of the minority, it might make you change your decision in relation to a decision you might be making. You might adapt or change or amend. So each and every person is entitled to their voice to be heard, and that's very, very important. And I think we could have a couple of volunteers. There's Bob, was it, and Kathy, very interesting issues you brought up. Bob seems to have a lot of experience, and it's people like you, Bob, we need in this community going forward. And we'd like to see where we stand. What's the level of interest out there? And I assume that there is quite an interest based on what I'm hearing and the feedback I'm getting. And also some people are very unsure as to the procedures. And when you're unsure, then you're afraid maybe to put up your hand and discuss an issue. And you might go away from a meeting then and say, I didn't like the decision that was made at the meeting. But yet you were in there, you had your opportunity to speak. And I understand where you're coming from if you don't know the facts and the rules and the regulations. And if you have a basic understanding, and basic is important here. It's very hard to get into the total nitty-gritty of the whole thing, because Robert's rules, there's over 700 pages in that. Like, it's a massive document. Like, yeah. Then we have all these resources then from the bylaws and governing documents. So we'd like to throw it out to the community there. And Jocelyn, if you want to come in there and maybe say a few words as well of wisdom that your experience and as a district director. And
yes, actually, I joined this community because I wanted to understand better how the rules apply, not only to a district, but even at the club level. While I was part of this group, we came up and with all these scenarios from which today's meeting came out. And I'm glad that I was part of this, because it really forces you to get down to what is important. So we decided to continue this community, and we would like to know who is interested of joining this community and what this community should look like. So we'll open this to the floor.
you raise your hand if you want to come in, like, because we need a community of people that will learn together and help each other. And you can bring your experiences in back to your clubs, and maybe have a slot at your own club then, 15-minute slot every now and again at your meetings, and go through some of the, what we propose to do going forward is to maybe, say for instance, Robert's Rules, the book there, and go through a chapter on motions or voting and elections. Take a section and go through it over time. And the same with all the other documents, the governing documents. There's so much material in there. And we need a group of people that are enthusiastic and willing to help out, and the important thing in Toastmasters is helping each other in a safe environment. And the great thing about it is you can bring it out into the wider community, into your local clubs outside of Toastmasters, or even into your workplace, chairperson of a branch, a union, or whatever. There's so many possibilities. So I would like some feedback now from.
We have Larry, we have David Tisha who put in the chat, you can set up half-hour presentation for the meetings every other week or once a month. The program would give your members a better understanding of how Robert rules work. And then we also have Bill Kirby who raised his hand.
Come in, Bill.
Thank you, Larry. Thank you, Jocelyn. I would agree with what you're saying, is that there's definitely a need for a better fundamental understanding of Robert's Rules of Order for people in Toastmasters in general. Having that basic knowledge, I think, will enhance people's ability to participate in either district council meetings or even club executive and business meetings more effectively. Toastmasters, Robert's Rules and our governing documents are sometimes feel as if they've been weaponized as opposed to used as a tool for democratic and respectful decision making. And I think that if people had a better fundamental understanding of these things, they would not see it as a threat, as opposed to the tool of good meeting procedure that it is and should be. Speaking for myself, I definitely have a keen interest. I'd love to be part of this grouping, and have taken the time to visit a number of clubs throughout North America that are focused on parliamentary procedure and Robert's Rules of Order. And I can think of two off the top of my head. One of them I put in the chat earlier. That's Point of Order Toastmasters in California, and another club in New York, whose name escapes me at the moment.
Okay,
Thank
thanks,
you.
Bill. I think that's important too, that meetings are important, that they're run in an orderly fashion. And who wants to be at a meeting for 3 hours when you can do it in 2? Who wants to be at a meeting for 2 hours when you can do it in 1 maybe? And if a meeting is well organized, well run, and people understand the rules and regulations around it, the quicker you'll get away from the meeting. And that's very, very important, because people get bored after an hour. Even tonight here, we're now going on an hour and a half. So people lose interest. Okay, DJ, yeah?
Thank you. I'm in District 3 in Arizona, and we have a hard time finding people to be parliamentarians because nobody understands either the documents that are available because of Toastmasters governing documents, or Robert's Rules of Order. I've been studying parliamentary procedure longer than I've been a Toastmaster. So I'm one of the few people in the district that really understands parliamentary procedure and has looked at the governing documents and actually perceived them in a parliamentary fashion. And I would very much like to be part of this group. I can't get up at 6 o'clock in Sunday morning, which is when you guys have been meeting, but this time frame works great. Even an hour or two earlier would work great for me. But I want to help with building a group that can put together a possible pathway for Toastmasters to consider. I want to be part of a group that puts together short workshops for the districts and for the clubs and for everybody that really should need this information. I've given short workshops at officer training that has allowed the officers to understand their perspective. I've given it to area directors and division directors so that they can be informed decision makers in the district.
Okay.
But I think more districts need to get involved.
Yeah. Thank you, DJ. Just to mention there's a survey in the chat, which we would like anybody interested in being a member of this community. And if you would like to fill it up, please. And it would be great feedback for us. So because
I don't think it's in the chat yet, Larry.
yeah, it is. I see it in there. Yeah.
I don't.
Not in mine.
Show interest.
Perhaps it's sent
Oh,
as a
sorry.
message.
It was in to me directly. Can you send it to everybody, Madoff?
So if we were to do this community, how often should we meet? Once a month, once a quarter? Yes, Elizabeth.
My suggestion would be once a month, because maybe there'll be some homework in between that people should work on.
So maybe when you're filling up the form as well, put in the time zone you're in, and we'll get an idea what would be a good time as well that would suit everybody. So that's important.
And to start this community, who should be part? Who should this be tailored to?
Club, division, area, district, or does it, Elizabeth?
I think we need to start with the people who are here today, or the people who registered, because they took action to get to it, and then they can suggest further people to come into the community.
That's a good idea. We always need a starting point, so that's wise.
Can I make one comment? Sorry, when you finish, can I make one comment? I'm
Yes.
Anne-Marie Joseph, and I'm from the Caribbean region. I'm probably the only person here from 81.
Hello, Anne-Marie.
Hardly anybody knows about the procedure, I believe, and I don't believe it's followed in many parts of the Toastmasters family. That said, while the rules are very important, there needs to be a balance. And I repeat, there needs to be a balance between the formal rules and the club. Because at the end of the day, the rules are there to ensure rights of the minority and the majority are taken on board. So we have to look at what the reason is behind the rules. Rules are made to be broken, and I say that as an attorney, but we have to have balance too. So I just want everybody to remember that while we have this focus on the rules, there is balance, and there's a need to see it in the context of a club. Thank you.
Yeah, Anne-Marie, that's a good point. And I always say a good chair will keep a very balanced approach as well. And the more the chairperson or a district director or a club president or an area director, the more they know and the more confident they are, the more balanced and fair meetings will be. And a chairperson that's very knowledgeable will should always be fair but firm. Fair but firm.
The rules are there as guidance, and I hate to
guidance.
emphasize that.
Absolutely, yeah. So the survey went into the chat for everybody. So I would encourage people, as many as you, to fill it up, and because we need people to lead us as well. We need a team to lead us, to set up our workshops and get together a group of us. And it's important that we spread the load out and get a few people that know the system and know how to set up Google Docs and all of this stuff. Like I'm good at certain stuff, but there's more stuff I'm not good at. So if we get a good broad spectrum of people in, and I'm excited about this because I think this is, and I see Panos there, he was at one of my training sessions in D71, and he's very enthusiastic, and I hope he has filled up the forum as well, because we need people like that. And I think people are excited about this, because the more you know, the more you'll do, and it'll help you in your career and outside. Don't be afraid to put yourself forward. And who will collect all this information, Rose? Will it go back to you and work from there? Come in, Rose.
Larry, yes, we will collect the information together with Badav.
Yeah, okay. So I think how are we on time? Where's the time gone there? I saw.
Time to wrap up, Larry. Over to Pat.
Okay. So we'll leave it at that. So, and thanks very much for your time, and great to see you here this evening. And over to Pat now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Larry. And thank you everyone for being here. And we've got just a couple of items to cover before we say goodbye for today. When I reached out just almost a year ago to talk about the need for parliamentary procedure that I was seeing across the world of Toastmasters, and with the dream of creating a community where we could actually talk informally and review and share experiences, I didn't fully appreciate what we would see today and the sharing that we've had. We've identified a need, obviously, and what I know is that Toastmasters find the need and then they start to find a way to fill that need, whether it's in their club, their district, whatever that might be. So I want to thank you all for participating, taking time out of your day to participate with us wherever you're coming from, and consider seriously joining the community where we look at parliamentary procedure and how it supports every voice in our Toastmasters Club, which is what's so important from our core values down to all our governing documents. So I'm grateful for each one of you. And at this point, I'm going to just turn it back to Jean. No, I'm going to turn it to Elizabeth. Yes, so many names today. I'm going to turn it back to Elizabeth, and she's going to do a roll of acknowledgement for all the hands that have touched this product. Over to you, Elizabeth.
Thank you very much, Pat, for guiding us and leading us in the most interesting fishbowl and things like that. We have a whole list of people we need to thank for the session today. And it's not on the slides, Jean, but we're going to first mention thank you to District 91 for being the hosts of this webinar. And they run a regular series of webinars on Sunday evenings, their time. So you're welcome to join in any additional ones. On the next slide, we have a big thanks to our presenters, which are Pat Johnson, who's current region advisor, a past international president, to Marika Dijksterhuis, who's a past district director for District 59, and to Jane Gamester, a past district director for District 91. On the next slide, we have also a thank you to our Parliamentary Procedures community. Tonight, I'm your host and been very much involved in the community since the start. We have Christian from District 71 and a number of other districts. We have Metaxia from District 109, Rose from District 91, Nick Lakani from District 71, and Panos from a number of districts as well. On an additional slide, we have Larry Lyons, who you heard this evening. Madhav was behind the scenes for timing today. Jocelyn helped out with the discussion of the community. Antonia Harrison has been very involved. Callan Galea from District 110. We'd also like to thank Andy Hesse, who was not able to be with us this evening, but he has certainly been part of this team from the beginning. And a special big thanks to the design and technical team who put it together, Alistair Barton, Nick Collins, and Grace Nathan. What a fabulous job you've all done this evening, and we really appreciate it. And to all our audience, we're really hoping you want to join this community. We've had a lot of fun going through the past year with Pat and Marika and Jean. So I hope you'll join us. Be sure to fill in the survey because that's how we're going to keep in touch with you. Check in the chat for the link. So as a final word, thank you very much for coming, and we look forward to seeing you in the continuing Parliamentary Procedures community. Thanks, everybody.